Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Tamika Robinson on the podcast. She's an IFBB pro. She's coming to us all the way from Colorado, but most importantly, she's our current guest. Tamika, thank you so much for being on the show.
No, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Absolutely. So, why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory first off? What really inspired and motivated you to get into shape and really adapt that healthy and fit lifestyle?
So actually I've always been an athlete, sort of like you. I started in gymnastics and then did track and cheerleading. I tried basketball here and there. I'm too short, apparently. All I liked was running down the court. That's not what it's about, apparently. So after that, I had this super cool opportunity after college to go run in the Puerto Rican Olympic trials, and I actually got hurt, which kind of sucked. But I mean, blessing in disguise. I found this trainer, and she trained me so I could start getting back to where I needed to be for that. And on the way, she was like, "Oh my god, I think you should do a show," and I was like, "I don't know what a show is, but sure, let's do one." So I got sucked in. I like wearing sparkly suits. The discipline was super intense and intriguing to me, and seeing what my body could do. So it was a freak accident, actually.
Yeah. Well, and that's awesome. But I always love to ask. I mean, if you were to poll 100 people or just have 100 people in a gym, what works best for them? Is just unique to them. I mean, it depends on
Yeah.
their diet, their training. There's so many little factors that add up to the package that people end up seeing. Was that hard for you when you were getting started with the weights, especially finding out what worked best for your body? Because I always say, like, if you were to go up to someone and say, like, "What did you train for this body part? It looks amazing." What worked best for them 99% of the time isn't going to work as good for you.
That's true. I do find that is very difficult. Especially for me, I have a very short torso, so training back is super interesting. Only have to do like higher lat stuff because if I do too much lower stuff, then I lose my waist. My arms are super long, so regular bicep curls don't work for me. I barely train arms, so when I do, I'm like, oh, I can't do bicep curls. It's interesting. Everybody's different. Everyone's body does respond differently to some things. There are like a handful of things that I'd be like, yeah, do that. It's gonna work. Leg extensions, those work. Do them.
Mhm. No, yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's all trial and error, which is, with a
Yeah.
lot of things in life. But how did that difference affect you? I mean, going from being a runner to then going into serious weight training, because I mean, that's a huge difference. I mean, running is so much more cardio based. Was that a struggle for you, sort of making that adaptation?
It was a struggle, and it's so funny because I was just reflecting on this not too long ago. I had to lift as a collegiate track runner, and I hated it. I was just like, I don't get the point in lifting. Why are we doing this? It's so stupid. And like now, lifting's my life. So crazy. But I wish I had lifted when I was running because I would have been stronger, faster, more explosive out the gates. It was just nuts. But I think training for that versus physique competitions is a little bit different just due to the fact that like physique wise I'm training to be symmetrical, proportionate, to make my lines look really good when I hit a back pose versus like, I mean, I'm strong, don't get me wrong, but versus like lifting to be an actual athlete. And I don't want to say like there's a big difference, but there is a difference in that type of training.
I always say, like, yeah, the power lifters that we have on, I mean, they might not look like sometimes they're the strongest, but then compared to some of
Right.
the bodybuilders that we have on who just look jacked, it's like a lot of people don't get that there's a huge difference between that. Where I mean, sometimes a lot of it is aesthetics, but also they are strong too as well. But that brings me into one of the questions that I love to ask because everyone's genetics are differently, so everyone's answers are different. But when you got
Love it.
started in the gym, what was one body part that really, really took off for you that you don't have to train as much now? And then everyone always has that one body part that just lag behind that they have to train into overdrive. I'll give you my examples first. My back is just, I could train it once a month and it would still look good. I mean,
Right.
I don't know why, but I'm also 6'3". So my legs and my entire lower body are just shot where I mean I gotta train it.
Yeah.
I have to train into overdrive just to get it any semblance of muscle looking down there. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
For me getting started, it was probably, which is gonna sound really dumb, but arms. And legs, kind of. And I say kind of just because, like, I did train them and they did look good. They had the size, but the definition wasn't there. So playing around with that was always fun. But like my legs just kind of took off and did what they wanted. And I'm like, yeah, this is awesome.
Oh yeah. And what was one area that struggled for you?
Oh, my struggle area, I would have to say my back. Oh, it's so cool that you get to have a good back doing one back time
Mhm.
or one back exercise a month or whatever. I'm lucky.
Well,
I would,
a lot of it for me too was one of the jobs that I had prior to, when I was even starting working out was I was an unloader. I unloaded boxes into trucks and I did that all the time. So I think that really developed the foundation where I don't have to do it as much because now I got promoted so now I'm a supervisor, so I don't have to lift all the boxes all the time. But I do think so. I have to, sort of put an asterisk mark behind that and say like maybe all those days of, 8-hour days just lifting, 50 to 70 pound boxes constantly, that might have had something to do with it.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And
Yeah.
congrats on your promotion. That's
Thank you.
exciting. Holla.
Mhm.
But yeah, for me, it was my back is because like it's just a muscle. Like I didn't know how to lift. I guess I didn't know how or understand the mind muscle connection. Like, where are my lats? What does that even look like? So figuring that out was super crazy, super hard. It took me like 6 months, and I was like, "Well, my back still isn't growing. I guess it's fine. I'm just not gonna have one."
Yeah, I mean, but the number one pet peeve for me is calves because that is the one body part where 99% of it's all genetic. I mean, you look at some of these people who just have huge calves and you're like, okay, you've never trained your calf muscles a day in your life. Let's be honest. So yeah, I
Yeah,
that's my biggest pet peeve. And I always said like I could do 10,000 calf raises a day. I could inject pure muscle into my calves and they wouldn't grow. I mean, it's
still nothing.
literally yeah, it's impossible. So yeah, I like to I always like to mention if you have blessed calves, I mean, you are just a very very blessed person. But at what point in your journey did you decide that you wanted to compete? How long into, working out and lifting weights before you said like, "Hey, this is something, that I really want to do." I know you had a friend that sort of recommended to you, but how long into that before you started?
So I was working with her for this is my trainer. I was working with her for about a month and a half, I guess. So
Mhm.
6 weeks in, and then she was like, I think you're doing really well, and I'm excited for you to go run and all this stuff, but I think you should do a show. And I was like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what a show is. She showed me some pictures. I'm like, oh yeah, I get to wear a sparkly suit on stage. I'm in. Sign me up.
Mhm.
Let's go. And then we did a 8 week prep basically for my first show, and I did bikini, so
Yeah.
it's just like slimming, trimming down.
And when you were getting into the gym, I mean, one of the stereotypes that I love to bust because it has gotten better the last 5 years on Instagram, but there's still just so many women that have that fear where if they touch one weight, they're just gonna hulk out, put on that 50 pounds of muscle and ended up looking like Dwayne the Rock Johnson. And I always say to
Yeah.
that, I would hire them to be my personal trainer, that same night because they found the secret that everyone's looking for. But did you ever have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't, I mean, I bet you hear that all the time. What do you like to respond to that by whenever you hear that just by some person?
Yeah, I never had that fear just because I've been an athlete for
Mhm.
just a long time. I lifted people as a cheerleader, like weights don't scare
Yeah.
me. Blah.
Mhm.
But I think I do hear it a lot, and they're like, "Well, do I look bad? Because I go to the gym." And they're
Mhm.
like, "Oh no, you look fine. You're probably doing something different." I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I literally hit the weights, and then I'll pull up like a video of like what my leg days or my arm days or something look like, and I'm like, "This is what I do." And they're like, "No way, you must go like you're doing all this stuff." I was like, "I don't lift heavy. I just don't because I want to keep all my joints intact, but I do a crap ton of reps." So like a workout for me literally is like 375 reps and up.
Yeah.
So, you just go for it. Like, you don't have to lift heavy. You have to lift light and then do it for a very long time.
I mean, like I always say, I mean, I always tell the story of when I was in college, getting bigger and stronger. When one of my really good friends, she came up to me and she said, like, Ryan, I noticed that all these changes are happening. I want to go to the gym with you, but I'm just afraid I'm going to get too bulky. And I told her, I
Yeah,
said, look, the amount of weight that you carry in your purse when we go out to clubs or when we go out to get something to eat weighs more than 90% of the dumbbells in the gym. She had a very heavy purse. Like I had no idea what was in there. I mean, a woman's purse, she might have had her house from home in there because like that thing weighed a ton. But yeah, and I told her, I was like, you're not gaining an ounce of muscle lugging that thing around. And that sort of convinced her. But the biggest thing that I love to talk about with women, especially because I think it affects them more than it does men, is just the confidence boost that it gives you when you work out and you get into shape. I mean, the confidence boost is
yeah.
one of the biggest things. Could you sort of talk about how that confidence boost impacted your life? Because it's one of those things that I love to say is not is something that you can take away from the gym and use it to impact everything else in your life. It's one of those very few things, but how did that confidence boost impact you in your daily life?
Um, oh man. Well, I'm talking to probably one of the most weirdest females ever. I've always been, I think about like sophomore year of college, I think. I just like, I
Yeah.
don't care. Like, I'm just going to be me. So I think like it just, I was already at 100 when I started lifting, but then I started lifting and I was like, oh shit, I'm untouchable. Oh, I
Oh,
shaved my head. I was like, you can't tell me nothing. I can do what I want now because you know what? Who's going to stop me?
yeah.
I look good. I feel good. And I think that's like a great thing for women, especially like if you look good, you feel good. Because, you know, we associate how we feel to how we look. Which is a crazy thing in
Mhm.
general, but it is what it is. But it's one of those things that, like, literally, when you feel good, everything's on 10, especially for women. Like, you have a bad hair day, it literally ruins the day. But, like, if you get in the gym, you have a good freaking workout and you're crushing it, you feel freaking great, and then you're like, I am the queen of the world. Let's go.
Mhm. No, yeah, I mean, I got a little bit of confidence boost, but nowhere near that. But yeah, it's just you get the confidence boost to be a lot more assertive too, especially for women. And you get to, it's just all those benefits that they have are just so huge. But I always love to say, I mean, especially when you're going into your first prep, but all the preps are not easy at all. People don't realize that just to be able to get into shape, to be able to go into a prep takes so much hard work and determination and dedication. And then going into a prep itself, I mean, that is just notching things up to an extreme level when it comes to your diet has to be on point, your workouts, you can't skip any workouts, everything just has to be just so scientifically precise. Was that a struggle for you going from just, being, really into working out and just, getting into shape, all of a sudden just having that prep life where everything is just so strict?
Yeah, it was really hard because like as a collegiate track athlete who like I literally did not care. I had McDonald's before I like ran track meets. It's just terrible to say,
Mhm.
but I totally did. But then everything became so regimented. I was like, oh man, I kind of thrive on organization. So it was difficult, but like once I figured out what worked for me, oh, it was like game over. It was so easy to like, oh, I have to get my workout in. I have this time and this time to do it. Oh, okay. I'm going to school, so I can fit this meal in right before. Probably driving in the car eating. So
Yeah.
it was really difficult, but once you like found a routine that worked for you or worked for me, it was easier to adjust.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, just the time management skills that you need to have just shows just
Right.
all the dedication that goes into it. But I also love to say, if you were to poll the general public, you would get such a small singular percentage of people that would be willing to, go up on stage and pose in a bikini. I mean, it's something that takes a
Yeah.
lot of courage. It takes a lot of willpower. Was that something that you ever had to deal with, or that you were ever worried about, or was it just one of those things where, like a lot of the compares that we have on the show, where they just say, like, you know what, I've worked my butt off. I just want to go up on stage and show it off.
Um, a little bit of both. I mean, like I said, I started out in gymnastics, so getting on stage or getting on like beam or floor bars, I was literally by myself. I've
Mhm.
done most of my sports have been like individual team sports to an extent. Track, it's you out there in that one lane. I mean, unless you're in a relay, but still, you have one part of that relay. So, being on stage never really like freaked me out. I still get butterflies, so like it's like good butterflies, like anxious, like oh yeah, let's do
Mhm.
this.
Mhm.
But yeah, at the same time, I think literally you're putting in all this work. Go on stage and show it off.
Mhm.
You know what? Who cares about what those judges have to say? They didn't do it, you did. So I don't think you should let anyone like tear you down or anyone get someone else down about that. Like you deserve to show that thing off.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where just the confidence boost really does help with going on that stage though too, because I mean, let's face it, I mean, if some people that didn't work out were forced to go on stage, I mean, that would be a completely different story. But one of the things that I love to talk about, because I'm one of the palest people you'll ever meet, being from the upper Midwest. I mean, the sun reflects off me, but it's not like the sexy vampire thing like Twilight. It's more of like, I mean, I could have an 8 pack and it still reflects off me, where it's like at the end of Indiana Jones when basically they open up the ark and everyone's face melts. It's kind of like that. But so I've never been tan a day in my life. I get farmer's tan, which, let's be honest, is not a real tan, or I just get burnt to a crisp. What is that feeling like for you when you get to put that tan on? Because we have so many people talk about, you see muscles that you never even knew that you had. Everything really seems to pop out. What is that experience like for you?
I love being tan. It's just so nice.
Mhm,
I mean, literally, like, you nailed it. Like, you just see a bunch of muscles that you haven't seen before, and like, oh, the best thing about being tan is if you've got a really great tan and then you have great lighting. Woo! It just doesn't even compare to anything else.
mhm,
Like you talk about, I don't even know the best cake you could ever taste, and it's literally better than that.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many. The only negative thing though that I think though is that when you put it on, you got to be basically like a statue. You can't touch anything. You can't sit on anything. You basically, you can't move around. I mean, you just basically have to be stationary the whole time. That's the only negative thing I think too.
That's not true. So I think with being tan, there's that perception,
Mhm.
obviously. But if you get like a good tanning company, they'll put like this cool glaze stuff and like this powder stuff that dries you.
Oh wow.
So you can do things. I probably wouldn't be like, go outside in the rain. You're probably gonna drip and melt and it's gonna look gross. But like you can, put some long sleeves on,
Mhm,
put some, chill big sweats on
mhm,
and be comfy and walk around like that. Like, oh, I don't have it. I think the only thing that you shouldn't do, minus standing in the rain, is going to the bathroom
mhm.
because literally that stuff does stain and it's not very fun.
Yep. Yeah, we've heard plenty of stories about that. But now, I mean, the most surprising thing to me that since I started doing this podcast, and I think if you were to ask the general public, the most surprising thing for them is that a lot of these competitors that I have on, the hardest thing for them is the posing. I mean, it's harder than their working out, it's harder than their nutrition. It's one of those things that I would have never guessed ahead of time that would be, the most difficult for the competitors. But what has your experience been like with posing? Because I always like to say, I mean, you can be a great driver, you can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser, you can never be a perfect poser. It's always
Yeah.
something that's ever evolving. What has posing been like for you?
So I started out in bikini. That posing was definitely difficult to learn. But I mean, I ended up mastering it because I practiced literally every day. And then when I moved up to figure, the hardest pose to learn was the back pose because literally, like, you don't ever use your lats in like a day to day like basis. Like,
Mhm,
you just don't. So learning how to flare them and fire them was so hard. It took me like 3 months, and I was like, "This is so
mhm.
stupid."
What really caused you to move up a division? Was just you were just getting too muscular, or you just always wanted to move up a little bit? What was the story behind that?
The story behind that is, I did bikini. I got the judges' feedbacks, and because I was a runner, my quads ended up being too big. Granted, I was like 125 pounds on stage. So I'm like, "What do you mean I'm
Mhm,
too big?" It was a nightmare. So my coach and I decided, he was like, I think we should just go figure and see how you do. And I was like, oh God, this is gonna be so hard. I have to do all this posing and learn how to do all that. Well, I managed it, but after that, I mean, I won the whole show when I did figure, and he's like, well, that's your division. I was like, oh, all right, cool. Then
Hey,
I just stayed.
yeah, I mean, that works. And now what is your favorite pose to do in figure, and what is your least favorite pose to do in figure?
So my favorite pose is my signature pose. That is literally taking the posing world or figure division by like flames,
Mhm,
I guess. But it's mine. I originated it.
mhm. We're talking to the creator now. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm, yeah.
exactly. But it's basically a front leg spread with a sit to the right hip with this standing leg. I don't really know how to explain
Yeah.
it. Like, I guess I could show you, or I could.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you invented it, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I'll show you then.
Yeah.
Let's see.
So you can
Oh,
say everyone that you saw it here first before it becomes the next thing that sweeps the nation.
well, it's already sweeping the nation, but it's one of those things that, oh, I don't think you can see me. So it's this one.
Oh, yep. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my
Yep.
pose.
Everyone copyrighted, trademarked by Tamika. I mean, you got to get express written consent before you use it. Yeah. So
Right.
how did you come up with that pose? Because I mean, a lot of times people just like to do the mandatories. They don't really like to, invent too much of their own. What inspired you to do that?
Um, well, so posing to me became super fun once I mastered the back pose.
Mhm,
Then after that, I was like, oh, these poses are so robotic. I'm like, man, this is, how do you do this? I've got too much personality. So in my heart, I'm a total bikini girl. Like, I got all the flavor, all the sass. Like, I will serve it up
Mhm.
on stage. But I was like, well, I can't do that with figure because of all these like mandatory poses. So I literally watched all the videos I could. I watched pros, I watched the OCB, I watched like NPC, everything on YouTube that I could find. And it's like, okay, so, they're doing a little bit of this. There were some pros that I watched that like had a little bit of like their own style, but nothing that stood out to me.
Mhm.
So I was like, oh man, I gotta make this mine. And I started playing with my own poses and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be it. So I like fell into it because I think I was waiting in line for something. And I was like, man, this is so awful. And I was like, oh my God, this feels really good. And I like flared my lats and had someone look at it. And they're like, oh, that's it. That's it. You look great. I'm like, oh, yes, perfect. And then I just made my own routine.
That's just awesome how they have I mean, how people find those poses to do. But the most important question, or the most popular, I should say, that I like to ask all my guests, whether they be my bands or, my bodybuilders or any other type of guests that I have on is for my bands, I always like to ask, what is that feeling like for you when you get to perform live on stage and, perform in front of hundreds of people? I mean, what does that thrill like? But that also applies to the bodybuilders. What is that feeling like for you when you get to go on stage and, show off all of that hard work that you've worked months upon months for?
Oh man, I can't even think of a okay, I can think of one better feeling and that was like getting married to my husband.
Mhm.
But like it's literally this like oh, there's one other feeling. Runner's high. That's a really good one too.
Mhm.
But it's like second to runner's high.
Mhm.
So you just feel so good. I think everyone should step on stage because it empowers you to kind of like take control of your life. But like it's just this moment where you're like, I did it.
Mhm.
And you're like, I'm here. You're welcome. You're
Mhm.
welcome. I graced your stage. That's how I feel.
Hey, the queen invented her own pose, so yeah, she can be like that. Absolutely. So yeah, and I mean, I always tell people, yeah, just find that one thing in your life that makes you feel like that and just stick with it. I mean, we're here on this planet for such a short amount of time. Just find that and just stay with it because I mean, that's the best piece of advice I could give anyone. But now we go to one of the fun questions. What is your go-to post-show meal?
Oh, that's a good one. Oh man, it changes. Sometimes if I depending on how much carbs we've cut, it's a nice freaking plate of lasagna. Oh, you would swear I was Italian the way that I would like
Mhm.
down that. If we haven't cut too many carbs like that, then it would probably be like pizza and hot wings.
Ooh,
Oh
that's a
yeah,
good.
I'm a hot wing fanatic over here.
I always said if I ever competed, I would just rent a Five Guys for a night and just go to town and just say, like, here's $1,000. You know what? Just feed me until I
Yeah,
either pass out, or throw up,
right.
or yeah, just yeah. That's one thing I would do. The most important question that I love to ask, everyone on the show that's in health and fitness or in bodybuilding specifically, because it is,
Yeah,
not brought up a lot. It's not talked about. Is a lot of people don't realize that when you guys are down at your stage lean, that is not a sustainable look. You sort of
oh,
manipulated your body through all the dieting and through all the training. It's not sustainable. And I mean, even for the guys too. I mean, the guys might have a little
yeah.
bit easier of a time for it, but for the women especially, I mean, you are not going to be able to look like that 365 days of the year. You might last an extra day after your show, and then you're going to start to put on weight. It's just one of those things that a lot of people don't realize because they see all these photos and then they say like, oh hey, they must look like that, year round. And then they see these
Yeah,
bodybuilders in public and they're like, oh, it doesn't even look like they work out. I mean, or just
right.
looks like they're in shape, but like they never competed. So I mean, how did you deal with that first? Because there's so many people that we've had on that have gotten depressed or they just got anxious, just realizing like all this hard work that I put on, all these months upon months of just going through that hellish prep life to get to the
Yeah.
look I'm at now. I mean, I am going to have to put on weight. Was that a struggle for you, and how have you adapted to that?
So super funny story, quick before I answer.
Mhm.
My first actual show, I did bikini and I literally like I had a terrible coach. She was doing good for the track stuff, but then it got too crazy. But literally we cut salt and as soon as I had my post show meal, I blew up. I've never had cankles. I've rolled an ankle before and still never had a cankle. So I had cankles. I was like, oh my God, what is this? It hurt everywhere to touch. Like my face was so swollen. I was like, oh my God, it looks like I have a bowling ball on my neck. That was crazy. It was so bad. Like that was like hard for me. I was like, man, because like I said, I've never had cankles. Like
Mhm.
what?
Yep.
So that one was really hard. But once I like fired her and got with my new coach, who's also my husband now, literally like we've maintained a good post show, like throughout the year kind of thing if I'm not competing. Like this is as bad as it'll get. And this isn't very bad. I feel comfortable.
And you're still in more, and you're still in better shape than 99.9% of the women on the planet. So that's what I always say to people when they talk about their post show. But like I said too, I mean, it's just like starting a business. You got to spend money to make money. You got to put on weight. You want to put on muscle or put on size. Having a coach that's also your husband, how does that work? I mean, how do you guys not want to kill yourselves after like a prep? Like, how are you able to get through that? Because I mean, just being on prep, I mean, you can go through prep brain where I mean, let's face it, you're not
You're just
thinking
dumb.
straight. I mean, you're just dieted down. So
Right.
how are you guys able successfully to navigate that as a couple as well?
Oh man, that's such a good question. Such a loaded answer for you. Luckily for me, I have been blessed with like the most chillest husband in the freaking planet. Literally, I have prep brain and I become like kind of grouchy. And, like, I don't do it very often, but I do it with him because I
Mhm.
feel safe.
Yeah.
Like, everyone will see me like, oh, you're so nice and you're on prep and how are you this energetic and da da
Mhm.
da. Da." Literally, behind closed doors, I'm like, oh, I'm a fucking
Yeah.
nightmare. Kill me. I just want to eat. I
Mhm.
hate this. I want to go to bed. I am so mean to him, and I apologize to him probably 1,000 times a day because I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry. It's just the prep. I love you. Like, don't take it personal."
So he's a saint, basically, is what this whole story
He
is,
is a
basically.
freaking
Yeah.
saint.
Well, yeah, and I mean, also, having him, as a coach too, really, really helps because I always tell people it's like always have a person that's there for you though too, because we've had people
Oh, yeah,
that have tried this by themselves, and
it's
99% of the
hard.
time does not end well. So just
Mhm.
having that, motivation and that someone next to you really, I mean, can be the biggest difference in the world. But now,
Yeah.
two of the questions that I love to ask, all the bodybuilders that I have on the show, and they really impacted me, so I like to always ask. But for my first one, when I was getting bigger and stronger in college, I mean, there's so many positive things that came with it, but there
Yeah.
was a negative thing. I mean, you're always going to get asked to move people's furniture. You're always going to get
Oh,
asked to open like pickle jars. I mean, I'm still at home with my parents for the next few months before I move out. And every time they come
mhm,
home with groceries, I mean, I basically have to lift the car into the driveway and bring in the groceries.
right.
Has that been a similar experience with you? I mean, I know your husband is really big and strong and works out a lot, but is there still like that assumption that people have where they take one look at you and they know that you work out that you can just do favors like that for them?
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Luckily, I'm too much of a diva to help anyone move. I don't like moving.
Yep.
No, hire somebody.
Hmm.
I'll open pickle jars. That's fine. We had a neighbor actually the other day. Was like, "Oh, it's Glenn. I caught you. Can you help me open this?" I was like, "Yeah, that's fine."
Yeah.
I'm pretty nice, so I'll
Yeah.
help just about when I can,
Hmm.
and depending on what the situation is. Like,
Yep.
no, don't ask me to help you move. I didn't want to move when I had to move. There was
Yep.
no way.
Hmm.
I think my favorite thing is like I hug other women. I'm a big girls
Hmm.
girl, so I like to give hugs. And they're like, "Oh my god, don't crush me with your big muscles." I'm like, "Oh my god, I know how to hug. Like it's
Hmm.
fine."
No, that was honestly my way of if because you have been to the Upper Midwest, going to college in South Dakota, so you know kind of
Oh
how the
yeah.
attitude is, where everyone's like super nice in front of
Oh
you, and
yeah.
they might be a little shady behind you, where it's yeah. So
True.
my way of doing that is I would just give the person that I didn't really like a very hard hug, where they would just be like, "Oh my God, you're crushing me," and I'd be like, just
Oh,
take it easy.
so
I was like, "What are you talking about? I'm barely squeezing." And after about like 10 seconds, I'd let them go. But then that's how they kind of knew that they were kind of on my bad side. That was my passive aggressive way of letting them know that. And I only did it to guys. I didn't do that to girls because I didn't want to, like break them in half. But other than
that's
because being 6'3", like 210 pounds, if I'm hugging like a 5 foot tall girl and just going, it's not going to end well.
squeezing her
So
head off,
yeah,
right?
well, yeah, basically that's how a true crime story starts, basically. So I didn't want to be
Right.
featured on one of those episodes. But yeah,
Right.
for me, like I couldn't tell, like especially last summer, every other weekend, Ryan come over and help me move my furniture. It just got to a point where I just told him, as long as I'm able to get my workout in ahead of time, because I don't want to be able to like get too sore from moving your crap where I'm not going to be able to work out. So that's what I,
Right.
ended up telling them. And I also say it's a double edged sword too, being this tall, because you're going to get asked to move, just based on your height alone. You could have zero muscle and they'll be like, oh yeah, tall guy can help you. So yeah,
Right.
I get that all the time. But my favorite question to ask out of all the questions I will ask you, and again, this is a multi-million-dollar idea for anyone out there listening, but when it comes to clothes for fit women, guys have their own problems when it comes to clothes, but for women, I always like to say your clothing options can be limited, especially, if you have big, broad shoulders, dresses aren't your best friend. Jeans are another thing that we hear of all the time where, they're not built for people that are in shape. What have been some ways that you have found to sort of compensate for the fact that your clothing options can be limited?
Um, this is gonna sound like so funny. I love going to Walmart. They have the best jeggings
Mhm.
ever.
Yeah.
They're so cute
Mhm.
and they're comfy and they stretch. They just work. And like some of their dresses now, like at Walmart, have like they're like fitted. So I'm like, oh yeah, I can wear these. But I mean, literally, yeah, I try to avoid pants at all cost. If I can't wear leggings to an event, then don't let me. Like I don't want to
Mhm.
go. um, maxi dresses are another fun one, just because they're loose and flowy,
Mhm.
and like you can always show some good arms and shoulders
Mhm.
from that. So it's a win.
You always got to show the arms off. I mean, let's be honest. Even during the polar vortex, I wanted to go sleeveless outside shoveling snow just so I could show off.
Oh,
But
yes,
that was the temperatures where you'd get frostbite from just being out there for 2 minutes without any clothes on. So I was,
right.
that's when I realized you have to cover up. But yeah, when you work that hard, I mean, obviously you got to show it off. But I always like to tell the story when I came back to a friend's wedding after my freshman year of college, and I'd put on about 15 pounds of muscle, and I bent down over to pick up something. I heard a zzz. Luckily, it was the shirt inside the suit. It wasn't the suit, so I lucked
Oh,
out big time on that one. Yeah, I know. Yeah, a disaster was, and I was one of the groomsmen too, so that would have been really embarrassing because it was
oh,
during the ceremony. Like when when the guy was just talking, I was just standing there. I think I dropped like a pen or something like that I had, so I went to go pick it up, and and luckily no one heard it or anything like that. But then I was able to just stand with my back facing where nothing happened. But that's when I realized like, hey, I might need to upgrade my wardrobe. So yeah,
right.
that was definitely one of those things. But now, I mean, like you said, you have a husband, so I like to ask all of my guests on here that are either engaged or married. I like to ask them these three questions. So how did you and your husband meet?
We met at my second bikini show. My coach ended up dumping me like midway through prep, and I finished it out and did it by myself. Did the last 4 weeks by myself, and he actually saw me up there and was like, "Hey, like I'd really love to work with you. Um, here's my card. Give me a call." 2 days
Work
later,
with you.
no, no, it was
No, I'm
actually to
just
work
joking.
with
I'm just
me.
joking. I'm just joking.
It
Yeah.
was actually to work with me.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, I was the cat. So I was the aggressive one in
Oh.
the situation. I was like, I want to date you. Let's make this work.
Oh, that's awesome. So where did you guys go for your first date?
Our first date, oh man, it was a cheesecake factory.
That's a good. I mean, I went there for prom, so yeah, that's always a good time to have. Before.
Right?
Yeah, that's always. Just load up on carbs before you hit the dance floor and everything else. So yep, that's
Right.
Cheesecake Factory is the
Yeah.
go-to place. But what is your proposal story? How did he propose to you?
So so funny. So actually, he proposed to me at a event. Him and a friend opened up this like magazine thing, and we had a magazine release party. He's like, "Oh, I really want you to come." I was like, "All right, sure." It was also like a week before my pro debut, so I had prep brain. I
Mhm.
was so tired. I didn't want to go. I almost flaked actually before the whole thing, and
Well, that
he's
would
like,
have been
"No,
awkward.
oh my god, I know." He's like, "I really need you to come." I was like, "I don't feel pretty and I don't want to go. I'm so tired."
That's when you
He's like,
ask a girl to marry you is when she tells you she doesn't feel pretty and she's tired.
"Right." I know. It's like, oh my god. So I threw on a wig, threw
Mhm.
on a dress, managed to go. I fell asleep in the car. Then, like the whole night, he's like getting things ready at this event thing. And then, like everyone comes in. There's like people are dancing. There's a performer. Then there was this like we had another friend who was showcasing her fashion line for fit people and stuff. So it was after that, like I was pulled on stage and someone was like, it was my husband's best friend actually. He's like, where's Jason? I know he's got something to tell you, but congratulations from all of us here on getting your pro card and going to New York. Like that's a big deal. I was like, no, thanks, thanks. He pulls up in this I-8. I don't know cars. I just know that it was
Mhm.
important to him.
Yep.
Pulls up in this I-8, gets out of the car, steps on stage, and is like, "I'm so proud of you. You worked so hard." I was like, "Oh, thanks. Yeah. Like, are you taking me to go get some food after this?" My mind's like going 100 miles an hour in the wrong direction.
Yep.
He's like, I stopped by. So my ring is a John Intensio ring.
Mhm.
So he's like, I stopped by John Intensio to pick up a few carrots, and I just had this question to ask you. And he gets down on one knee and pulls out the box. He's like, "Will you marry me?" I was like, "Oh my god, I love you! I didn't see this coming." Yes.
That is awesome. I mean, I always love to hear a good engagement and proposal story. So yeah, that is so awesome. But I
Yeah.
totally forgot to ask you this, but one of my favorite questions I also love to ask is, what is that feeling like for you when you won your pro card? Because for everyone out there who's just listening who might not be that familiar with bodybuilding, winning your pro card is probably the highlight of so many of these people's journeys, just because it's that affirmation that, all of that hard work that you put in is really paid off and now you can compete at the pro shows. What was that feeling like for you when you won that card?
Um, Literally, I had no words, and like, I'm not one to be like, tongue tied or oh my god, what do I
We've
say?
discovered
It
that in the
was
half
just
hour that we've been talking so far.
right. And I was like, oh my god. So I don't know if you know who John De La Rosa is. He's
Yep.
one of my good friends now. But he was backstage and he was the first to interview me. And literally, he's like, "How do you feel?" I'm like, "Ah." I got no words.
Yep.
It was so funny, and it's probably the funniest interview I've ever done. And you were like, "Oh my god!" And I had to apologize to him like 8 times because
Mhm.
it's like, "I am so sorry. I
Yeah.
didn't know what to say." But I like literally had no words. I like it was my third national show in a year, and it was the first one I actually went to. So it was my first and third national show. Um, my first time there, I was literally like 28 out of 32. Yeah, got my ass kicked. It was awesome. Loved it. I
See you next
contemplated
year.
quitting. I was like, I suck.
Yeah.
I need to quit. Those girls were huge. I have to be big and all this stuff. And it was so crazy. I was like, oh man. And then I went back a whole year later, bigger and better, and won the whole thing. Like I didn't expect to win the whole thing. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get second. Like I feel it. I feel pretty good. I'm doing great. Nope, won the whole thing and had nothing to say.
That is that is so awesome. I mean, I love that. But how has your training and nutrition also changed since then? Because I mean, when people go into pros, I mean, you go from being the big fish in a little pond to a little fish in a huge pond where it's just so eye-opening. Have you really taken things up a notch? And what are some ways that you've used in order to, guarantee that you're going to be looking even better than you did with your pro card? Did you just use different workout techniques or just have you changed your nutrition? What has that been like?
Um, we've changed my nutrition, but not like by much. We're
Mhm,
just eating a little bit bigger
mhm.
or a little bit more, not bigger. We're eating a little bit more protein, a little bit more carbs. That's so that I have the muscle that I need. Granted, I don't need to put on anymore. I've already talked to several judges. So literally it's about maintaining the muscle that I have. But at the same time, with all the cardio, like I still have to be
I was gonna say
eating
that conditioning has to be a little bit
that much.
better too. Yeah, that's the one thing that really,
Yeah.
really a lot of people just I hate
Woo.
I personally hate cardio. So you being a runner, I mean, you kind of have a little bit of back history. I mean, because I had a girlfriend that used to do marathons and half marathons. She'd be like, "Oh, I'm going out for like a 6 mile run." I was like, "I'm not. Have fun." Like,
Don't count me in for that.
yeah,
I was a sprinter. I
yeah.
did not do the long distance. The furthest I ran was a 400. My
Mhm.
coach tried. He tried. He had me do a mile one time. Guess who was walking? This girl. He was pissed.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's one of for me too. Like once it gets past like 2 minutes, I'm like, okay, this is boring. Let's do something else. Yeah. So yeah, I totally struggle for that. So now we go out to the questionnaire part of the podcast. It's our audience favorite, my personal favorite part of the podcast, where we're gonna ask you about a dozen or so health and fitness questions that we ask all of our guests. So for our first question, what is your go-to workout song at the moment?
um, right now it's "Show Me Love." I can't even. It's a super old school song.
Mhm.
You got to show me
Oh,
love. It's
yep.
that one.
Hmm. Yep.
I don't know why, but I'm like loving it right now. I'm like, here we go.
Yeah.
Let's get this going.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for me, I'm one of those old school where I gotta have my 80s pop and cheese music just because it's so cheesy. Like, I have the Rocky 4 soundtrack because it's the cheesiest soundtrack that's ever been made. But I have a problem. It's like I have a gym at home, which is nice, so I can work out there, 75% of the time. It's just a basic gym. It's not like, it's nothing too big. But when I do go to a normal gym, I mean, I'm one of those guys where I gotta wait for the beat to drop. So, like, if I'm doing like lat pull downs, I might be standing there for like, I might be like this for like 30 seconds, and I've had people come up to me and be like, "Hey, are you all right? Did you like pull out your back or something like that?" And I'm like, "Oh, nope. Just waiting for the beat to drop, I carry on." So yeah, I am known throughout my gym as the guy that waits for the beat to drop, but I always say, I'll take that. It's a badge of honor for me. But now, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be?
It would probably be The Rock.
Hmm.
Oh, that's the love of my life outside of my husband.
Yep.
And he's just badass. Like
Hmm.
he be getting after it. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
His energy and my energy. Well, I would probably be like, I think he would hate me because I'd probably be like Kevin Hart when they were working out
Mhm,
together. So he would probably be like, "No, I'm not gonna
mhm.
do that." But I'm like, "Yeah, let's go."
Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, The Rock is 90% of our answer for that question, so I always say, I mean, for me, it would probably be more like Arnold just because, it's Arnold, and I'd love to hear him yell at me in his Austrian accent, so that would be hilarious. I wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't be able to take it seriously, like, I just laugh, and he's like, "Put that weight down!" And
Just lose it.
I would just lose it, yeah. But now, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could train any celebrity, who would it be?
Train any celebrity. Ooh, I think I would want to train. Oh, what's her name? Alicia Vikander.
Oh, yep, now I know what you're talking about, yep.
Okay, I'll say
The
she's
Swedish
the
girl?
new
Yeah,
Tomb Raider.
yeah.
Oh, love her.
And she got pretty lean for that role. I remember hearing a story about that where she did that. But the one thing that brings me up to one of my biggest pet peeves, those celebrities where like they show these videos of them curling like 5 pound dumbbells or like 2 pound dumbbells, like, oh my god, getting ready for my movie role, and then like 2 months later they're like super lean down and shredded. And you're like, okay, let's be honest, that's not what you did. Like some people have that false belief that that's what it takes to
Right.
look like that. So yeah, that's one of my pet peeves. But for me, I mean, probably like you said, Kevin Hart, I'd probably take with him just because that would be so fun to work out with him. But I wouldn't be able to get a workout in. I mean, it would be the best ab workout of all time just from all the laughing, but that's
Right.
about as good as we would get. Yeah, I
That'd
couldn't
be the
agree. I
best.
could, yeah. That's just a given. But now, what is one item that you always need to have in your fridge?
One item that I own: hot sauce,
Ooh, I was
Louisiana.
Louisiana hot sauce. Yeah, I was gonna say it's usually we get either chicken or egg whites, but now it's always nice to have hot sauce. Hot sauce. But the one answer that really surprised me was mustard because a lot of these bodybuilders, 0 calories, it's zero in fat. So, they douse their chicken or they douse their egg whites in it just to give it a little bit of flavor. And I always say to that, you might want to reevaluate your life if you're having to put, mustard on your chicken and on your egg whites to give it a little bit of taste. So yeah, we got hot sauce on the board. That's actually, I think, like the third time that it's been on there. So it's moving on up. So out of all of your followers on Instagram, if they were to meet you in person, what would you think would be the most surprising thing that they would find out about you?
Um, that I am a princess.
That goes without saying, yes.
um, well, and I don't mean it in that way, but my husband thinks it's so funny. Like outside of the gym, and like if we went to a track or something, you would never really know that
Mhm,
I'm a total badass.
mhm,
I mean, you would see it, but you're like, she might live, she might do like Pilates, and
mhm.
that's why she looks so good.
Yeah.
But like when I run, when I run for like not actual running purposes, I look like basically like Napoleon Dynamite when he ran off the stage.
Yeah.
You'd be like, "Oh man, she used to run track with that stupid run." Like what?
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
don't like. I mean, I like sports, but not to the extent like I want to play. Like I don't want to play basketball now. Like I don't want to get hit in the face. Granted, I'm like not that bad, but like
Uh-huh.
no, don't sign me up for that. Soccer, no, I have to do all that running and there's a ball. Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
no.
I think that would be a huge thing that people wouldn't realize too. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's definitely up there. I mean, we haven't heard that ever, so that is, yeah, that's one of those answers that I absolutely love. But now, if you had the all-knowing power and you could change anything about the sport of bodybuilding, if they just told you, like they said, Tamika, you're the judge, you're the top judge. If you want to change one thing about this sport, go ahead. We'll all follow it. What would be the one thing that you'd want to see changed?
I want to see, and I'm sure this one gets said a lot. It's probably going to be the judging.
Hmm.
Um, I think for me, um, do you remember when like the NSL came out?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the way that they judged everything was basically on a tablet. You had certain things that you were supposed to hit, and then once that score was submitted, you couldn't undo it. And it was like made public for everyone to see. That way, like, you didn't feel like you got cheated. You
Mhm.
didn't feel like you got snubbed and all that stuff. So, like, if I could change anything, it would probably be that.
Yeah, and that seems like honestly like that seemed like it was actually a good strategy. I don't know why they got rid of that because I mean, honestly, if you can see what the judges are saying, I mean, it's a lot easier to make certain scores if you know it's going to be an unanimous, and then you're not going to be able to get found out. So yeah, I
Right.
completely agree with that. But now we go to the fun portion of the questionnaire. What was the last TV show that you binge watched?
The last TV show that I binge watched, I am like a garbage human. uh, in the best possible way.
Yeah.
I watched The Client, and
Hmm.
there's only 2 seasons, which like kind of blows, but it's Jennifer Love Hewitt, and I
Yep.
love her. Oh, she's gorgeous.
Mhm.
But it's her TV series about like being a struggling mom in Texas and then having her like she lost her husband. Well, he ran away
Mhm.
basically, and she had to do some not so legal things, basically prostitution, uh,
Mhm.
to provide for her family, and she had to keep it a secret and all this stuff. It was really good. They only made 2 seasons. I'm like, oh, I'm so hurt.
Yeah. Well, and that I've heard about that, so I highly recommend that everyone go and check it out because I have heard really good things about it. But what is your favorite TV show of all time?
My favorite TV show of all freaking time. Oh man, that's so hard because I have like three. Uh, Family Guy would have to be number one.
Yep. I gotta say, for me, it's a tie between the Office and Friends, just because I'm the most basic person like that. But now everyone has one. What is a guilty pleasure movie that you enjoy?
Guilty pleasure movie. Oh, V for Vendetta.
I would have never guessed that. So yeah, that might be the most interesting thing about you if someone went to in person. V for Vendetta, yeah, that is a good one for me. All my guy friends, close your ears because I'll never admit it in person. Princess Bride is my guilty pleasure movie.
Oh no way!
Yep, I'll watch it. I watch it a lot, and whenever it's on TV, it's one of those that I stop and watch. But again, all my guy friends, you'll never hear me admit it in person. You can only hear it on this podcast. So, the Princess Bride, guilty pleasure movie. But now, two final questions of the questionnaire. So, what are your goals now for this next year? If we were to talk to you a year from now, where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding career?
So in my bodybuilding career, I would like to be at the Olympia this year. So I'm going to be working really, really hard to be doing that. So I'm going to hit literally as many stages as I can if I have to go on points, or if I can just win a show, that would be super nice. I also kind of want to be like, I don't want to say like a life coach,
Mhm.
but maybe hold like a posing seminar slash like life coach thing for all my women clients who, have found themselves through um the bodybuilding and fitness community, and then like, I just love posing.
Mhm.
It's my favorite form of art next
Mhm.
to actual art.
Yep.
So, that would be super cool. But I just want to let, the women know, like, do not associate your looks with your worth.
Mhm.
Through that like seminar or class or whatever I call it or
Mhm.
whatever, because I mean, literally, this sport is so subjective and it becomes so shallow. Like people forget that there's an actual human being
Mhm.
inside,
Yep.
like, so I want to make sure that that is very clear. Don't base your worth on just this. Like,
Yeah.
be more than you are.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that, and that's amazing. And let me know if that gets started and I can help spread the word. Absolutely, 100%. I mean, I love helping out people, especially guests on the show. But now, for our last question of the questionnaire, if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
Be fucking who you want to be.
Mhm.
Just fucking do you. It's
Mhm.
fine. Nobody cares.
Mhm.
As long as the opinion you have of yourself is high, then that's all that matters.
Mm. I mean, honestly, that's one of the best things I've ever heard. I completely
Thank you.
agree with that. But now, before we wrap things up, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to?
Ah, man, yeah. I guess since you're in the Midwest in Minnesota, shout out to one of my friends and track mates from college, Alyssa Christensen. Love you, girl.
Mm.
Shout out to my school. Granted, it was not the best in South Dakota, but Dakota Wesleyan University. Love you
Mhm.
guys. Whoop whoop. My amazing husband and his company, Jason Allen Robinson and
Mhm.
Jar Fit. My incredible sponsors. I love them. Makeup Madame Cosmetics, Warm Glow Spray Tans, Avasty Swimwear and Design, um, All Max Nutrition. Love them. Their products are amazing. If you have
Mhm.
not tried them, I suggest you do so. And Supplement Diet, my Colorado sponsor, but they ship everywhere, so you can trust up there too.
All
Woo!
right, I'll make sure that I write all that stuff down and I leave links for everything down below because
Ah,
I really
sweet.
enjoy helping out all those places. So again, you guys, we cannot thank Tamika enough for coming on the podcast. You were a great guest, and we just love having people come on and share their stories and their journeys. And honestly, we wish you nothing but the best. And everyone, go and give her a follow on our Instagram page. I'll leave the link down below. Just looking at some of her photos, you're gonna say like, I need to get off the couch and stop eating all these Twinkies, all the time. But again, you guys, This is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.